Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time we are on Summer Song playing as the Forces of Brettonia against the High Elves. So a bit of a classic matchup in the sense that it's definitely pretty classically Brettonian favored. And the build we're running here is one of those very High Elf abusing builds, I suppose. So for my lord, we are running the Fey Enchantress. Slightly different loadout than what used to be in the norm or to what I usually run. We are still running Earthblood, of course. We're still running the full equipment ability and item kit. We do have the Chalice of Potions and all that stuff. But for spells, we've only got Earthblood and Dwellers Below. I did want to see if I could get a Dwellers Below off against a potential Phoenix Guard blob if my opponent happened to bring them. Though, as it turns out, my opponent did not go with a Phoenix Guard blob, so we probably won't get use out of that. Alongside that, we do have a single unit of Grail Guardians. These guys will be there to bodyguard her, to allow her to apply that Mortis Engine effect. High Elf units have very low HP per model and rather low overall HP, so if you can get the Fey Enchantress Mortis Engineing them, they melt very, very quickly. And the Grail Guardians can stay in there, they can support her, they can protect her, even against Phoenix Guard, and allow her to keep applying that pressure. Besides that, for a front line, it is dirt cheap. It is 5 units of men-at-arms. These guys do have silver shields, and they can soak up a lot of pressure. And in a protracted fight, they can kind of just bog down Phoenix Guard and White Lions, and especially High Elf Spearmen, and just tie them down for ages. Obviously, they're not going to be winning anything, but just the fact that they can bog the High Elf player down, soak up their missile pressure, and all that sort of stuff is huge. Behind them, we do have 3 units of normal peasant bows. I wanted fire arrows. I do prefer fire arrows, but I couldn't afford them with this build, so we had to downgrade to normal peasant bowmen. Would have had to cut a men-at-arms. And include some peasants instead, probably to make room for the peasant bows with fire arrows. On the flanks, double Grail Knights on either end, and these guys, of course, absolute powerhouse. In lance formation, they can just bunker bust defensive boxes, and otherwise they're going to dominate all sorts of large, all sorts of heavy cav from the High Elves and all that sort of stuff. So they're just such a potent force, and really, really difficult for the High Elves to deal with. Plus, with Perfect Vigor, as the match progresses, these guys will just be getting relatively stronger compared to everything else. Now, for my opponent, he did Vanguard some Illyrian Reavers here in the back, looking to harass and potentially poke away at my backline. If they get a rear charge, they'll be able to annihilate my peasant bows for sure. But right now, they are kind of tucked away there in the trees, not really too influential, and I'm immediately pushing forward. I did spot those guys. It's always good to check your corners when a match starts. I did see those guys, and I was immediately pushing in to pincer my opponent, who has a very defensive build. Besides those Illyrian Reavers, it's basically a box. He does have some Lothran Seaguard shields in the center, Lothran Seaguard on the periphery, a single unit of Sister of Avalorn, and more Lothran Seaguard over here. So potentially, this is a lot of anti-large defenses. Alongside that, 2 White Lines of Grace to win the infantry fight, and then 2 Phoenix Guard to anchor the flanks properly and just really stall me down, and slow down the Grail Knights and the advance from most of my cavalry. In the center, we do have a Lariel the Radiant. She is going to be providing a magic damage aura. Once again, very potent against Brettonia with all their physical resist. Personally, I do prefer Teclis for Flaming Sword of Ruin, but definitely Boon of Isha is pretty potent. She also does have the Shield Stone of Isha, which is granting physical resist to all these troops. Completely irrelevant against Grail Knights, but definitely going to be helping against my peasants and bows and my men-at-arms. She does have Earthblood, she's got Frost Protection, and she does have Arcane Conduit, so she's going to be able to spam quite a lot of spells. Alongside her, there's a Noble with Foe Seeker, so he's going to be there to hopefully intercept my cav and apply a little bit of anti-large pressure. Nobles, on their own like this, not necessarily the most potent counter, but still they can definitely do some hurt. Now, for myself, I'm immediately pushing forward. You can see I actually pull my Grail Knight Guardians back. I did spot the Sister of Avalorn a little belatedly, and I didn't want the Grail Guardians taking their volleys of fire, so we're going to be pushing forward here, dodging and weaving a little bit with the Fey Enchantress, pulling along the sides with the Grail Knights. Unfortunately, we are actually going to lose a model here, I do believe. You can see those volleys from Lothran Seaguard actually getting through and doing a little bit of damage. Obviously, nothing too impressive, but they are going to do a little bit. Meantime, the Fey Enchantress is going to dive in here and start draining these White Lions. So on the charge, they're not doing anything too crazy, but immediately that Mortis Engine effect kicks off, and it's going to be doing, I think, 12 damage a second to these troops. And that is going to start adding up, and it's doing damage to all the other troops here too. Not the Phoenix Guard here, but the Sister of Avalorn, the Lothran Seaguard, and all those troops are immediately getting slagged. In the meantime, Peasant Bows do push into position, and they are going to start pounding the Sister of Avalorn. And you can see they're immediately taking volleys of fire, getting whittled down relatively quickly. And because my opponent is being forced to use his shooting to focus on my peasant bows, it means he's not prepared for the Grail Knights, who are now swinging around the flank, looking to get some cheeky rear charges. And anytime the Grail Guardians have dove into the center, they are fighting a lot of Seaguard, which you think is not good for him, but because of their monstrous melee stats and decent sustained melee, they're going to be able to do pretty well. And the Sisters here forced to bail out and move as the Chalice of Potions come raining down, and meantime they're basically completely eradicated as the Knights come barreling through. Over here, these Lothern Seaguard were braced, so they're going to hold, but this second unit of Grail Knights is going to get a full rear charge against unbraced Lothern Seaguard and just going to demolish them. And you can see that devastating charge just pouring in. And Fey Enchantress does shift over here. That means her fear effect is going to be kicking in against all these troops. Keep in mind, she does cause fear. Now, obviously, Alarielle is providing immunity psychology and an AoE around herself, so probably affecting like these troops over here. In fact, affecting the Sister of Avalorn here. And I guess even these lots, I guess she's actually affecting most of these troops, surprisingly. But for the ones on the periphery, especially, the fear is going to kick in and start forcing her out. And that is just brutal stuff. You can see the Lothern Seaguard now breaking formation, fleeing for dear life. And this means that they are now exposed to the Grail Knights' attentions. And the Grail Knights are going to be able to pick them apart one by one as they flee. And you can see the Sister of Avalorn already removed from play. An incredibly valuable unit down the drain. My opponent has forgotten about his Illyrian Reaver. So they're sitting here looking pretty in the woods, not able to do anything. As we run roughshod over his shooting. Now, in the meantime, the Noble here trying to push through the Men-at-Arms, failing to do so, getting bogged down. You can see the Sisters here cut down to a woman, I guess. There's not many of them left. And you can see the Phoenix Guard here getting bogged down, trying to get into the fight, trying to get in against the Grail Knights, but it's just not happening. We're just kind of dodging and weaving, chasing after the Alarielle, and applying those rear charges. And that constant pressure to these fleeting troops as we drop another, or actually my opponent there drops in, or no, I did drop an Earthblood. It's confusing, there's a bunch of different units there. My opponent has dropped Frost Protection, keeping some of these troops in the fight, which is definitely great. But at the same time, that Earthblood is going to heal these troops. The Grail Guardians staying in the fight here, whittling down these Phoenix Guard, and the Noble bogged down by Men-at-Arms as the Grail Knights get a charge in on Alarielle and start whittling her down. She does have physical resist, but no magic resist, and she's going to get chipped down pretty efficiently. And you can see on the flanks, the cleanup crew doing work. Lothern Seaguard here routed off 9 miles, 8 miles. Over here, a small unit of Lothern Seaguard is going to rally in the distance, I do believe, on like 10 miles, but these Grail Knights are immediately coming in to clean up that mistake and force them off, and you can see this pressure just wiping out these troops. This healthy unit of Grail Knights is going to be forgotten after they wipe out those Lothern Seaguard, but for the rest of these troops, you can see these Phoenix Guard just bogged down. The White Lion's not able to do anything, and now the archery fire is coming in on the Phoenix Guard, so despite the Earthblood, they're not going to be able to sustain through this. You can see more crushing charges coming in from the Grail Knights from all sides. More Earthbloods coming in, healing these Grail Guardians who are bogging down this Noble. And once again, Grail Knights pulling away, ignoring those Phoenix Guards, showing the weakness of halberds against heavy cavalry in this game, because the Phoenix Guards just cannot catch them, they can't apply the pressure they need to, and now they're being pounded by crossfire. So, you know, these guys 65 models still, but obviously the physical resist is going to be helping against the arrows, and they do have 100 armor. But there we go, another bombardment coming in against the Phoenix Guard, dropping their morale as a rear charge piles in from the Grail Knights and starts buckling them. So they are actually going to stick around here. They don't quite break, but still the damage is devastating. The Grail Knights getting that rear charge, that magic armor or magic damage bypassing the physical resist, and you can see these Phoenix Guard are not going to last much longer. They are getting whittled down, despite all the buffs like Earthblood going down. In the meantime, more archery fire is going to force off these Phoenix Guard. Of course, archery fire does apply a leadership debuff, which means these guys are forced off. The Phoenix Guard there in full route. My opponent finally does notice his leader Reavers, who are going to start pulling in, but at this point, it is too little too late as the last unit of Phoenix Guard buckles. This Noble is tied down here by a horde of Grail Knights, buffed by favor of the Fae, in fact, so they're going to be whittling him down pretty quick. And over here, Alarielle, similar to the Noble before, bogged down by filthy, unwashed peasants. So, despite her little blasts of light there, probably killing a few of these guys, she's not going to be able to get through. And you can see, at this point, I still forgot about these Grail Knights, finally noticing them, pulling them back in, but at this point, none of it matters, really. It's game. The Illyrian Reavers are trying to get in here on my archers. Certainly would have been useful a while ago, but we are going to pull out with the Grail Knights. You can see they're coming on an intercept course. These Phoenix Guards still 20 miles with 500 HP, which is nuts, but we do get that intercept with the Grail Knights. Men-at-Arms here soaking up a charge from the Illyrian Reavers, but just not going to happen for the Isles at this point. The Illyrian Reaver archers caught by the Grail Knights, just getting lanced down here by those favored by the lady, and you can see just the Illyrian Reavers cannot hold up to this, and it's going to be a pretty brutal ending here for the High Elves. So, with knights running them around in all directions. So quite frankly, this match is bonkers, and if you're playing as the High Elves, you're going to go into this with quite a disadvantage, but I do think there are builds that you can do to counter it. Obviously, if you're playing as Brettonia, a build like this one, if you go tournament legal, you got to ditch some of these units, you got to rework it a little bit. You can ditch like a unit of Grail Knights and take the budget Grail Knights, the Knights of the Realm Regiment of Renown. I think it's Knights of the Lionhearted. You can kind of shuffle things around and make room. But really, this build basically tournament legal, just small adjustments can make it work. And it's very potent and very hard for High Elves to stop. They just do not have the tools really to stop mobs of Grail Knights and Grail Guardians. You can see all the two of these guys, or three of these guys, gain chevrons. Grail Guardians gain 2 chevrons over the course of the game, so really showing their prowess. And keep in mind, Grail Guardians are actually cheaper next patch, so this will be an even easier build field. But if you're playing as High Elves, what do you do? I don't really want to dwell too much on my build here because there's not much to say for it. We didn't get to use the Dweller Below, which sucked. But besides that, there's not much to say. It's a really stupid good build. But if you're playing as High Elves, this sort of build, in my opinion, is not the way to go. Brettonia, because they're always going to be going with heavy cav, almost, or most competent Brettonian players are going to go mass heavy cav. Your shooting is not going to last long. Your inner box is not going to withstand. It's not going to hold. You're basically guaranteed, I'd say, to lose your box. It doesn't matter that you've got 4 Lothran Seaguard and Sisters of Avalorn and Phoenix Guard. A good Brettonian player is just going to bypass them, pile in, break your units, and like you saw in this game, pick them apart as they try to flee. Now, Illyrian your archers, they can get some damage over time. You can see in a quick burst, they can run down backlines, that sort of stuff. But once again, they're not really going to be killing Grail Knights. So there are some ways you can play around this. One, I do believe this is something recommended by Lotus Moon, is to use Sisters or the Handmaidens on horses to pick apart knights, but this is a very tedious and long-term process, so you're going to need to use your Lear Nevers and Sisters to try to whittle them down over a very long period of time. So if you're trying to do something more combat-oriented, more fighty, my recommendation would be to go for a cav build of your own, essentially, and beat the Brettonians in their own game. Personally, I prefer Techless for this. There's a few reasons. One, Techless is Scroll of Hoeth. This allows you to apply an immediate, for example, if you're going against Fae, it means you can immediately deny her healing at the critical moment of battle. You can deny her those magic buffs that can make life miserable. Second of all, Techless does have Flaming Sword of Ruin, which synergizes amazingly well with some of your heavy cav. For example, a build I would suggest is bring Double Noble, both on horses, something along these lines. And I have run similar builds on this channel before, but basically a build sort of like this one on Techless, you don't need Chain Lightning. The rest of these spells, well, we'll see how much money we have left once I'm done deciding on everything. But then, for example, you could do like 3 Dragon Princes. Maybe you can do 2, but let's say we do 3 Dragon Princes. We go with a super Dragon Prince heavy build. Front line, nothing fancy, just a few spears backed up by a couple archers. We have got some points left over, so we can make it archers with light armor, for example. So we can do builds like this one. If you don't want this sort of build, there's other ways you can take this. Other ways you could play this one out. You could completely ditch the archers. You could go with something like this. I do personally like to have at least 2 archers in case your opponent brings a mounted yeoman, because I don't want to be wasting a net on mounted yeoman. So let's say a build like this one, then you can throw some chevrons into your knights or your wow, I can't even pressing the wrong button. But let's say you do a build like this one. So you've got some points left over here on Techless. You can fit in all these spells. You could adjust this, whatever. But the point of this build is, if you're charging in against your opponent and they've got this heavy-duty Grail Knight build, with Net you can isolate and prevent certain Grail Knight units from getting into the battle. You can prevent them from getting their charges off. With Scroll of Hoeth, you can deny, especially Fae Enchantress, who's stupidly common in this matchup, you can deny her the ability to get her healing off immediately. Which means that you can get a charge off, you pop your Flaming Sword of Ruin, you pop an Enfeebling Foe, you pop a Net perhaps to lock a unit out of the fight, which is a significant investment of Winds of Magic. Don't get me wrong here, it's going to be a decent chunk. But with that sort of drop of abilities, then you've got Scroll of Hoeth going in, you can deny your opponent, you can basically guarantee an annihilation of like 1 unit of Grail Knights or 2 units of Grail Knights maybe, in a flank fight. And then from there you snowball the game out of control. It does take an overinvestment in cavalry. You are paying more for a cavalry contingent here than Brettonians will be. But it is a good way, in my opinion, to have a fighting chance in this matchup. If you don't do this, like I said, there's other ways you can do this. You could probably do like a Phoenix build. You could try to bring a Frostheart Phoenix to apply terror and to apply magic damage, and especially that melee attack debuff. But personally, I just really do like this build with Techless. I do like having that Flock of Doom to nuke squishy Brettonian infantry, regrowth to heal single models, especially nobles, having the Enfeebling Foe to weaken your enemy, Scroll of Hoeth, and that sort of stuff. So that would be my recommended build if you're trying to play High Elves against Brettonia. Is it the best way to go? Perhaps not. It has been very successful for me. I can't really think of a match that I've lost with this build, but I have had several very close matches. It can definitely be tough in certain situations, and you have to be very wary about losing Techless. He is very squishy, but at the same time, I would say this is a competitive build. So pretty good stuff. Also, Flaming Sword of Ruin does synergize really nicely with Kindle Flame, so you get Flaming Sword of Ruin off right away. Then you get Kindle Flame, and your opponent is taking huge damage because they're getting debuffed against fire, plus you're getting 25% more damage, and you're bypassing their physical resist. So against Ground Knights, it's just so potent. This makes units like Fireborn and Dragon Princess really, really solid in this matchup. So it's just some fun stuff and some stuff you can make work. But yeah, that would be my recommendation, my 2 cents there. I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative and hopefully entertaining to watch. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, any requests, as usual, don't hesitate to post them. I will do my very best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.